What's up everyone, Georgia Film Boy here. I am making one of my first videos, which I feel is an important topic to talk about, and that is the perception of camping within the Call of Duty community. And that is one that is met with deductive reasoning, i.e., if you sit in a corner, you suck. Let me clarify. To some, it may look as if a camper is just hiding in a corner waiting for the game to end. I can assure you there's much more going on than just hiding. If you've seen other camp videos, or you've subscribed to the Black Worm, or you're part of Camp Nation, or if you've read The Art of War, you'll know there's a real advantage to getting into cover at the opportune moments. This is the ideology of efficiency. Thinking smarter and not harder, getting more kills and less deaths. Of course, this is all mathematical. This doesn't happen by sheer accident. Campers use the odds against the enemy, which says if you're in more cover and if you're already aiming, you're gonna win the gunfight 9 times out of 10. If somebody calls me a camper for doing this, I just laugh. All it means is that they don't understand what their enemy is actually doing. Not to mention, if they're saying things like camper, it means you got to them. It means they're angry. It also means that they have too much hubris to actually respect what their enemy is doing.
You need to take your enemy's side if you're going to see things the way they do. And you need to see things the way they do if you're going to anticipate their actions, respond effectively, and beat them.
For if you don't know your enemy, how can you expect to counteract them? But in order to do that, they have to start playing mathematics, to start thinking about percentages and odds,
cover,
and
head
opportunities,
and risk,
score streaks,
angles,
spawn trapping, middle
spawn
flanking,
camping,
and even
outflanking.
using the 5 other players that are on your team that are supposed to be helping you out. If you're unfamiliar with any of these strategies, I'll be talking about them in great length in this video. Why camping works in Call of Duty. There's a good chance if you've turned on the TV in the last ever, you've probably seen some sort of mathematical analysis of sports. An angle or a percentage of a shot, the probability of a throwing or a running route, and even chess moves have all undergone strict mathematical analysis. And the same analysis can be applied to Call of Duty and other first-person shooters in every gunfight that you might get into. There are a lot of variables in this game, but by far the most important one is where the enemy is at. At the beginning of every Call of Duty game, you'll be starting on opposite ends of the map. Therefore, it's very easy to deduct that the enemy is going to be coming from your 12 o'clock. However, as the match goes on, this becomes a little more difficult to figure out. What helps me is to think of it like a football field. If you've ever found yourself on a team where people complain about spawn flipping, which is where the enemy flips back to the spawn that you originally spawned at, if they spawn behind you, there's a good chance that you pushed too far into their spawn so that they had no other place to spawn at but behind you. Essentially anything past their side of the 40-yard line will be too far and will induce a flip. This should get you about half of the way there for predicting where the enemy will be coming from. There's still the variable of your own teammate, which you obviously cannot control. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a class where you can essentially become more than just one person. You'll have 3 different equipment items you can put out, which will cover 3 other routes so that you can cover the 4th. This in theory, of course, lowers the angles you have to look at, decreasing your vulnerabilities and increasing opportunity. Not only is our end goal to kill the enemy, but to kill the variables. We want everything to become a constant, turning the enemies into mindless robots without options or choice.
This is a process. It's a process. It's a process.
Every at-bat's like a hand of blackjack. Every card that's dealt, your odds completely change.
Everyone wants to attack. Quit trying to attack. Let the game come to you, man. There's no clock on this thing. This is a war of attrition. Let them make the mistakes. And when your enemy's making mistakes, don't interrupt them. They're giving you an out, man. They're just giving it to you. Take it. Say thank you.
Thank you. Double time for the double kill. Their biggest mistake was letting me get set up, because once I'm set up,
Game over, man! Game over!
if they come at me, that's exactly what I want. I'm already pre-firing if they come around the corner. I'm already head glitching, so I'm only showing 5% of my body. They're showing 100% of theirs. I'm calling in UAVs, calling in counter UAVs. Even if they do spot me, their ADS will be much higher than my own because they'll be running to get to me, whereas I'll already be aiming at them. They try to go around me or flank me. Sorry, been there, done that. I already covered that 3 times. Although really my Kyber mine already went out. My friend was already covering it. So I really created more vulnerabilities by letting these guys here through. So now that I know that my safe place is now on my 9 o'clock, I can start funneling the enemy through the 12 o'clock position and start earning things like the Thor missile. Running hardline at 125 points per kill, you can get pretty much any score streak you want. And to give my enemy a little bit of credit themselves, by the time they do catch on, it'll be way too late. I can go ahead and add on another 10 or 11 points just for getting the Thor alone. Now I should say, if you find yourself dying and trying to get back to the same spot where you're trapping them, you're going to get most of your points off of vengeance kills. which is essentially them wanting to come back and get vengeance on you, which usually will never happen because you're going to be ready for them. However, if they do end up killing you, it'll be them that's ready for you while you're running, and your ADS takes more time to get to them, and they're going to be at a head glitch, and they're going to be more advantageous, and they're going to have a higher percentage of killing you versus the other way around. This will work a lot like poker or baseball, where you only play the hands you can win, and you only swing at the balls you can hit. Everything else you ignore. You don't play it. You don't swing at it. I don't approach a gunfight where I'm going to lose or somebody's already aiming at me. Now, I normally recommend playing what's called an audible at this point, since the enemy is caught on, where you end up blocking down another portion of the map that they're unaware of, because they will catch on. But like I said earlier, it's normally too late. Since I have my Thor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up my Kyro mines on each set of the wall runs, and I'm going to set up my trip mines so that when I call on my Thor, they'll be running inside to get to cover just to run into more death. Like I said, we want them to have zero choices. Now, while I'm marking people with this Thor, I'm going to go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of the different kinds of spawn camping and spawn trapping. And what we did on this game was a spawn trap. However, we initially set up to be a center camp where we could flip either side of the spawn very easily, as it does very often in this map. Although it was not needed, it ended up inevitably being a spawn trap the entire game. And a spawn camp would be essentially us staying on our side of the 20, like a lot of people do on May Day, where they sit there on their side of the spawn and they wait for the enemy to come to them. I should say that if you are trying to do a spawn trap and not a spawn camp, it is very important to have somebody like a safety in football. If you have everybody on your team rushing past your side of the 40-yard line, blocking out routes, which is totally understandable, but it does have consequences because it will still flip. And you're not going to be able to hold on to positions, so you're going to end up with a lot more variables than you would really like. Now that the damage is already done with the Thor, I'm going to get into how I get to it in the first place. Now, the biggest thing is running UAV, counter UAV with a combination of combat focus. This will inevitably double your assist points, double your kills, and double any specialist kills you might get while using it. That's like essentially getting a quad feed per one kill, or getting a grand slam for just one base hit. It's mathematically overpowered, which is obviously why I use it. Now, I know what you're saying. Only noobs can. Pros wouldn't do such a thing. Well,
Look at that. Good start. Yeah, still a 1v2 for Pac-Man coming around the corner. It's going to be Crimson's Pac-Man.
now granted they're playing objective game modes. They are locking down routes, locking down objectives, and essentially camping. Yes, this strategy definitely works in objective and core modes. Stay tuned for my next video where I'll be talking about just that, as well as meta map positioning and how hotspots will change throughout the season. If you've watched the video this far, thank you. Please like and subscribe. There'll be more to come.